Hello and welcome to DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf, and I am joined by Riley Fessler. Hey, Riley, how are you?
Pretty good.
You got a vacation coming next week. Are you looking forward to it?
I am. I'm excited for
I don't
the
want to.
nice California weather.
Nice. That sounds really good. Minna and I will be here holding down the fort. How are you today, Minna?
I'm sad I'm not going on vacation, but I'm happy to be here.
Well, once you've done 5 years with the company as Riley has, you're allowed 4 days of vacation. That's the way it works. We're very generous in that regard. Let's
so close.
so close, so close. We are at the last day of March, the beginning of a new week. Been a busy weekend. What do you want to kick us off with, Riley?
President Trump expressed anger at Russian President Putin and threatened to impose secondary tariffs of 25 to 50% on buyers of Russian oil if he believes Moscow is obstructing peace efforts in Ukraine. I've got bad news for President Trump. Trump criticized Putin for questioning Ukrainian President Zelensky's credibility and warned of potential trade restrictions on countries purchasing Russian oil. Despite his frustration, Trump indicated progress in talks with Putin and suggested new tariffs could be implemented within a month. The proposed measures could significantly impact major buyers of Russian oil, such as China and India.
Complete bullshit. 100% bullshit. Trump has no intention of imposing tariffs on Putin. He has an intention, probably, of trying to look like he's actually negotiating with Putin. But actions speak louder than words, folks. So wait till you see the deal. Wait till you see whose points are adopted. Wait till you see who the U.S. is supporting in all of that. It's not going to turn out like Trump looks tough on Putin. Minna?
Elon Musk distributed $1 million checks to voters in Wisconsin ahead of the state's Supreme Court election, despite legal.
That can't be illegal.
Nope.
It can't be.
Story over.
Yeah, can't that? What could be wrong with that? You know, he's a rich guy. He's like being very generous to the people of Wisconsin. I personally have a tear right in the corner, Mike. Can you see it here? I'm just wipe it away. He's so generous.
Despite legal challenges from Wisconsin's attorney general, who argued it violated state laws against gifts to voters. So there you go, David.
What about that? You know, by the way, he got on Air Force something, a U.S. plane to go and do this. And I just thought to myself, so we've come to the point where we're not just corrupt, we're actually giving planes, providing taxpayers are paying for senior non-quasi, maybe not so much officials of the U.S. to go and bribe voters. I mean, that's what your tax dollars are going towards. Anyway, sorry. Is there anything else about this you want to say?
Honestly, that pretty much summarizes the whole article. But one thing that I did find interesting that I will interject here is that because of this donating, giving out money to voters, all of that, the race has become the most expensive judicial election in U.S. history.
Yeah, well, of course it is, because once you cheat and you pump money in, that's over $100 million, I think, for a judicial race. And as was pointed out this morning on MSNBC, if you think Elon Musk is doing this because he's got an issue with gerrymandering, no. Here's a shocker for you. He's got a Tesla case before this court, and he wants to get the outcome he wants. So he looks like he's doing something for the GOP. He looks like he's doing something for Trump, but that's not his motive. He's doing something for Elon. And you know how you can tell when Elon's doing something for Elon? Because he's doing something. Because everything he does is for Elon. Riley?
French far-right leader Marine Le Pen was convicted of embezzlement and barred from holding public office for 5 years, jeopardizing her 2027 presidential bid. The court found her party misused EU funds, sentencing her to a suspended prison term and a fine, though she denies wrongdoing. The ruling sparked outrage among her supporters, who called it an attack on democracy, while critics defended it as upholding the rule of law. The decision could deepen political instability in France as Le Pen's disqualification reshapes the electoral landscape, and her party remains a dominant force in parliament.
Yeah, but as Ed Luce, our friend, said this morning on Blue Sky, or one of these places, this is what an independent judiciary in action looks like. So look at it and weep, America, because here she was doing this thing and, she's been disqualified for running from office. Trump, he committed crime after crime after crime in his first term, and our Supreme Court said, hey, why don't we give you immunity for your second term? And they also said, the Attorney General's office, that now reports to you, and it does not do the work of the American people. So no one is going to push Trump unless it comes up in a court. And of course, Trump's theory of all of this is that our Supreme Court will ultimately defend him. Had this happened, when I saw the story, I just thought, had they just moved quicker on Trump's case, had Merrick Garland moved quicker, had the courts moved quicker, had the Supreme Court not been obstructionist, had Trump been convicted on any one of these things, had the trial even started on these things before the election, we might be in a completely different situation than we're in now, because the election was much closer than most people report that it was. And we would not be seeing democracy demolished in this country.
President Donald Trump announced that his upcoming tariff plan, set for release on Wednesday, will target all nations rather than just a select group with the largest trade imbalances. The plan, dubbed as Liberation Day, aims to impose reciprocal tariffs on countries that charge fees on U.S. exports, as Trump views tariffs as a way to protect the U.S. economy and improve trade terms. While concerns about a trade war and potential recession are growing, Trump has hinted at possibly scaling back the tariffs or applying them at lower rates than those charged by other countries.
Yeah, well, let's break this down. First of all, there's a story in the New York Times today about Peter Navarro, Trump's, tariff whisperer in the White House, who says this is going to result in $6 trillion in additional revenue to the United States. First of all, Peter Navarro, alleged trade expert, doesn't seem to realize that the people who pay the tariffs are American consumers. So that would be $6 trillion in additional fees paid by American consumers, which would not be a good thing. But secondly, of course, he doesn't actually provide any arithmetic to back up his assertion, because it's complete BS. What it's going to do is this: tank the stock markets, tank the global economy. The Goldman Sachs this morning said that the likelihood of recession is now up to 35%. They have scaled back their growth projections for the first quarter by 50% because Trump is just following through with these tariff plans. But I'll tell you, it's got another, consequence. I tend to lease cars, so I have a lease in my car, and it was coming up, and then I thought, wait a minute, my car is not from the U.S., so I went to the place, and they said, yeah, lease it today. After April 3rd, the price of all these cars is going to go up 25%. And the woman I spoke to said, I have a problem because a bunch of the people that I work with ordered cars because they want it in a certain color or something, and the cars are coming in a couple of months. Well, guess what? They ordered a car and the price was X, and they are now having to call them up and say the price is now going to be Y. And another person I spoke to who's in that business said, I think we're going to end up like COVID. People are just going to stop coming in. I saw a report today from Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company that said if auto sales plummet, if people hold on to their cars longer, they'll buy tires. And so they could make up the money by selling people who are holding on to their cars longer. All of this is to say there are serious consequences for businesses in your town. And I might add that I live in Washington, and the car dealership I was in is in Washington, and they already said, we've already had problems because a bunch of the people who come in here to buy cars have had to call us up and say, I lost my job in the government. I'm not going to be able to buy the car. So, this is real stuff. Peter Navarro is smoking, some kind of hallucinogen. The president literally does not know what he's talking about on this, and it does not bode well. The only sort of glimmer of hope is that the last time the markets really pummeled him on this, he pulled back a little bit. And if the market response is really, really bad, maybe he'll do that again. What I don't understand is, his Treasury Secretary is a Wall Street guy. His Commerce Secretary is a Wall Street guy. And they're defending this. Nobody is saying to Trump, this is crazy. I was a trade official. I was a senior trade official in the United States government. I got to tell you something, folks. This is not something anybody would have even remotely thought of. It's so crazy, so out there. So not good news for the United States or the economy that the president has loony advisors and doesn't know enough on his own to reject their advice. Riley.
President Trump suggested he is seriously considering a third term, despite the constitutional barrier of the 22nd Amendment, which limits presidents to 2 terms. He claimed there are, quote, methods to extend his presidency, though he provided no specifics, and falsely asserted that the 2020 election was rigged. Legal experts dismissed the idea as unconstitutional, with one professor stating that there are, quote, no credible legal arguments for a third term. Critics, including Democratic Representative Daniel Goldman, accused Trump of undermining democracy, while some supporters like Steve Bannon voiced enthusiasm for his continued leadership.
Yeah, look, anything Steve Bannon's for, be against, okay? But secondly, they're not critics of this. I mean, critic is not a strong enough word. This is unconstitutional. It is explicit in the 22nd Amendment. We understand that this is unconstitutional because we had a president who went for multiple terms, Franklin Roosevelt, and both parties said, no, we can't do this ever again. So it's unconstitutional. If he makes a push for it, it is an authoritarian move. But let's be clear, everybody. This is a overweight, out of shape 78-year-old saying that he wants to keep the job that he barely seems to understand at the moment 4 years from now. In his current condition, he'll be lucky if he's still around 4 years from now. But if he is, and let's all wish him a long, happy life. He's very likely not going to be up to doing the job. Does that mean there's no MAGA threat post-Trump? No, there'll be a MAGA threat. Elon's young. A lot of the tech bros are young. JD Vance is young. There's a lot of people out there who could step up and continue the MAGA movement. Of course, Trump doesn't really care about that because he's a narcissist. But I wouldn't. I suspect even this Supreme Court will smack him down on this issue. But let's not lose sight of the fact that it's not just about Trump. It's about the gradual, systematic taking over of the country by a small group of extremely wealthy people who are using flaws in our democratic system to achieve minority rule and impose their views on what the U.S. should be on the rest of us. How's that going to turn out? I don't know. We've got some elections coming up over the next few weeks, interim elections, some interim congressional elections, this Wisconsin election, which is tomorrow, I believe. And that'll give us some idea of whether voters are turning against this. Certainly, they seem to be at town halls. But if you're in a state where there's an election, you can send a powerful message. by showing up and voting for the Democrat, voting against the MAGA candidate, even if you're a Republican and you just want to defend the democracy in the United States, defend the Constitution. That's the thing to do. It's very important to send a strong message, particularly given that the Republicans have such a narrow margin. I think it's 3 seats in the House. Anyway, that's to watch. There's an election coming up tomorrow. We've got all our podcasts coming up each and every day, which we will cover these issues with expert perspectives, because that's what we do. So listen to all of them. Listen to DSR Daily, listen to Deep State Radio, listen to DSR's Word Matter, listen to Siliconsciousness, listen to our podcast on AI, energy, and climate, listen to the Daily Blast that we produce with the New Republic. A lot of good stuff here. We hope you'll join us for that. Until then, thanks everybody for listening. Thank you, Minna Stein. Thank you, Riley Fessler. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.